that I'm learning about language, I'm discovering dimension to other English speakers that I didn't know about, because I know the language more. It helps me to understand them more.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Strong Stoic podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Tumblin, and today I'm joined by my dear friend, Luc Giguere. Luc is a quebecois, meaning he comes from Quebec. We actually met when I was in Quebec City. We became friends, and we've spoken quite a bit on language barriers and the Franco-Anglo relationship up here in Canada. And so in this episode, we really just talk about sort of that language barrier and the nature of language and sort of how you can overcome that between people and really whether or not it should divide countries. And so I hope you enjoy it. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
Dude, I'm so excited to have you here. You're my first guest in person. So welcome.
All right.
And this is how the conversation is going to go.
Exactly. Perfect.
So, you're coming all the way to the East Coast from Quebec.
Yep. Vacation time.
And how do you like Quebec?
Sorry?
How do you like Nova Scotia?
How do I like Nova Scotia? I like it. It's pretty good, actually. People are great, nice, gentle. The only thing that sucks is it's raining all the time because we're at falls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fall time, so yeah, there's a little bit of rain. We're getting close to Halloween.
Yeah.
So.
And I didn't know that.
Well, having spent 2 years in Quebec City, it gets pretty cold there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it gets pretty bad. It gets Quebec is so cold that when you go outside, you are instantly in pain.
Yes.
And that sucks.
Depends. Depends if you like the pain.
Depends if you like the pain. So let's give a little background.
Yeah.
I lived in Quebec for a couple of years, which I mentioned, and I mentioned it on the podcast before. So we met in Quebec City.
Yep.
You were in the gym.
Yes.
I was a coach at the gym.
Yes.
And I was told you wanted some weightlifting help.
Yep.
So I went up to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you started talking to me in French.
Yes.
And I hope I tried to stumble and talk a little bit in French. And then you were like, oh, you speak English.
Yes.
And so it was like, okay. And then you speak really great English. So we started speaking English and we started talking about coaching and weightlifting. And then over time, we became friends. Here we are. But that first interaction.
Yep.
When you're in Quebec, which is a French-speaking province.
Yep.
How weird is it to have someone come up to you that speaks English and horrible French?
It's not that weird. It happens all the time, you know. I think that people in Quebec knows that, you know, we are surrounded by the notion of English people. So interacting or hearing people speaking English is not a surprise in itself. So no surprise, actually, man. It was more like, okay, you're speaking English and my English is not that good. So let's figure out a way to communicate.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting thing because my experience living in Quebec has been that when I approach someone, and I normally do try and speak a little bit of French. Obviously, you know, my French is decent, but it's not that great.
It's great.
So but you know pretty quick that I'm not like a French speaker, a native French speaker.
Yeah, you know that I'm not a native English speaker, right?
Oui, exactement. But sort of navigating that space is a little tricky because you have to be a little vulnerable in order to actually communicate with someone that speaks a different language because you're afraid you're going to make mistakes. You're afraid you're going to like look stupid. You're going to say something stupid. And so like my experience with talking with people from Quebec is that I would always go up and I'd make a little effort in French. And normally they, even if their French wasn't that, or their English wasn't that great, they would like switch to English with me.
Yeah.
And this happened naturally and it was a pattern. It happened a lot.
Yeah.
even though I was speaking French. Now I don't know if that's because they recognize that my French wasn't good, so maybe they're willing to practice their English, but there is that initial weirdness where it's like, okay, what do we do here, right?
I understand what you mean. I think that, every person from Quebec has basics in English. We're learning it at school. Like, it's mandatory at school. You have to learn English. So they have basics. And then you go to high school and you have different program. You can go to an English program, or you can, continue your French education the way that you want, basically. So there's intensive English courses that you can take. But, most of people have, they know English. They know how to speak English. They're not good at it, most of them, but, we know. So the switch is easier for us than probably a person naturally speaking English and just convert to French.
Yeah, but and what's the difference? Because obviously you've traveled outside of Quebec quite a bit.
Yeah.
But so for me as an English speaker, I go into Quebec and I know there's probably, well, it depends where you are. Montreal, everyone speaks English. Quebec City, probably most people speak English. Lévis, which is a small town across from Quebec City, not a whole lot of English there, right? So for me, going into that, I kind of expect, I don't have too high standards for, depending on where I go, of course, but I don't have too high standards for English. So I expect people to be speaking French.
Yeah.
I don't go in there expecting to hear English, like maybe in Montreal, but pretty much everywhere else in Quebec, you expect French.
Yes.
So that it's a weird dynamic, right? Because when you are in Quebec, you're the same thing. Your default is they're going to come and speak French.
Yeah.
So when you hear English, it's almost a different thing. But what's the experience like different when you encounter someone that's English in Quebec versus when you are outside the province? And obviously there's English, right? You're speaking with an English person.
Yes. It's
Do you want to get it maybe a little bit closer?
Interesting question. I would say I'm working a lot in English. I'm not a very good English speaker, but I'm working a lot in English. So when I'm meeting someone that speaks English, wherever or whenever, it's not shocking. It's just like I switch. It's natural. And the more you're getting comfortable speaking English, the more you're doing it. And I don't find it weird. If it's the question, what would be surprising for me is if I'm going to a restaurant in Quebec City and then the waiter or the waitress serves me in English, like by default as a first language. That would surprise me. But interacting with someone on the street in English is just like, okay.
Yeah, so there's something to be said about that switch in language though, right? Because just the other day I was talking with Geneviève, who's your fiance. Congratulations on the fiance.
Thank you.
But I was talking, and we normally speak in English, right? And I said something to her in French.
Yeah.
And it was something very simple, like est-ce que tu veux un café? Something like, do you want a coffee? Like something very, very simple. And her English is quite good as well, but because she was expecting English, and even though I'm speaking her language, it was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, it's almost like you have to do this switch in your head.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
When you're not expecting it.
It's very important. I have another example for that. English is a second language. All right? So my knowledge of the English language is pretty basic. I don't know English literature a lot. So when we are interacting in French, the switch that we're talking about is kind of, we are preparing our brain to interact in English, basically, and it needs preparation and focus. So another example, this morning, we were ordering breakfast at a restaurant, and for a specific meal, it was Benedictine egg. In Quebec, when you're ordering egg, normally the question is 1 or 2 eggs, and it's done. Your order's done. But at the restaurant that we went, they asked for what type of cooking you want your egg.
How do you want it? Yeah, yeah.
Soft,
yeah.
medium, hard, or something like that. And they were talking about Hollandaise sauce. Like, do you want a spicy one or the other one? And since I didn't expect the question, I had to make the waitress repeat the question.
Right, yeah.
Because I wasn't prepared to hear it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's this kind of same mechanism, It's not a first language, so you cannot, catch.
Right.
You don't catch the information at the same speed, basically.
That's interesting and that's actually it's not exactly tied to the language, because I've had that happen to me too in English. Like, you're ordering something and like they say, what do you want? Okay, I want eggs. And then you just tune out.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
so it's like this thing, like, I mean, it makes sense, but if you're not listening, you're not going to hear.
Yeah.
Right.
But speaking the language helps.
Yes. Of course. Yeah.
It helps. But when you're not expecting the question, it's like, okay,
yeah.
so.
WTF.
Pardon me. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. That's right. So, why all the hate, man, between French and English?
Good question.
I'm saying this generally speaking. So, and maybe just a second, because a lot of the listeners are actually American.
Yeah.
But Quebec is a French-speaking province, and there has, if you go back far enough, there actually wasn't conflict between French and English.
Yep.
But then when Canada became Canada, that's when really the sort of conflict between Quebec and the rest of Canada, I guess, was initiated.
Yeah.
And so it seems to be like an older, past generation thing, but there's still sort of some roots that are sort of working its way out,
Yes.
So, so it's always been interesting to me, and I grew up obviously in English Canada, and you grew up in French Quebec.
Yeah.
And so I think it'd be interesting to sort of talk about our different perspectives growing up, and then how it evolved as we became adults and matured and not babies,
There's, many answers to that question, I think. One of it is, I think, English Canadian are part of Canada. Mm-hmm. As a citizen, and Quebecers, we have a nation, and it's called Quebec. So we are considering ourselves part of a country called Quebec inside a big country of Canada. And the premier of Quebec, he says it right. all the time. Quebec nation, and it's hard coded in the culture of Quebec. So I don't know if it's probably one of the reasons why there's a conflict, because we don't feel part of it, kind of. There's always this kind of Quebec independence. We're different.
Yeah.
And I have that too. When I was listening to the Canada leaders debate in British Columbia, the English one, and the lady asked the question to the Bloc Québécois leader. I was shocked. Actually, I was shocked. I was like, that's not good. That's not a good question. And then I was kind of a little bit frustrated about it. But, it's, I think that, it's something that when you don't understand something, you kind of fear part of it, or you're scared of maybe some characteristic of a situation, and you don't have time to understand it fully, and then you prefer to just continue the same
patterns.
Same pattern.
Yeah, that's a great point. And this is true with so many people, right? Like Quebec is a particular case that's strong in this, because you have an identity within the rest of Canada, but that whole idea of being born into a culture or a society, and then feeling like that's your identity. And it really is, up until you become an adult, and then you start seeing the world and forming your own values and forming your own opinions about things, right?
Yes. So what I can say about it is, the province of Quebec right now, the government are creating laws to protect the culture of Quebec right now. And, my opinion, and I think it's a good thing, because the more we are diving in the future, I think the more that the identity of Quebec is losing. This is our perception. This is the perception of at least the government, because they are passing all those laws. I cannot talk to every French Quebec people. I'm talking for myself, and I'm saying that I think the fact that we have at least two different culture in Canada, and then at least I put the emphasis on at least, because I think that there's more than two. There's more than two. At least two different culture. I think that it's good, and it makes Canada stronger as a country, because there's at least two opinion for the same topic every time, basically.
Yeah.
And I know people all across Canada. No, not all across Canada, but in many provinces.
Canada's a big country.
And when it comes down to individuals, we all live the same kind of problems, and we all have the same kind of situation. When we are hitting our toes on a table, it hurts. Like anyone. Yeah. So we are all human. We live mostly all the same thing. So conflicts, differences, culture differences, and conflicts. I think that it's at the end of the day, if we're putting our priorities at the right place, it's secondary. I think.
Yeah, well, that's the interesting point, because I've been thinking about this, and we've been talking a lot since you've been here. But I've been thinking about this because it seems to be there's a hierarchy of values, right? Yeah. So, if you're part of a province or a state in a country, and Canada is an example, but you could also say this about the U.S. There's for example, in New York, there's particular values that are important. There's New York State values, but they are all superseded by the American values, right? They have to be. So it's like the provincial versus the federal.
Yep.
Right, and it seems like, and again, and I got some interesting tidbits about this later, but it seems like generally speaking, or at least what has historically been the case, is that Quebec, or a lot of people in Quebec, want the Quebec values to be above the Canadian values within the province.
Yep.
Right. But and I say that loosely because there were a couple referendums, right, where they tried to separate, and obviously it didn't
work.
It didn't work, right?
Yep.
So again, making these generalizations, it's not accurate, because there's a lot of people in Quebec. I mean, I live there and I talk to people.
Yeah.
I've had some people say I'm not Canadian, and I've heard other people say I am Canadian first and I'm a Quebecois second. I've had both,
Yep.
And I see this, and I've also had some interesting things. I don't know what to make of this, to be honest, and no value judgment on this at all. But I've heard a couple people say, and it always takes me off guard, that they feel like they should be speaking English.
Yeah.
And there's always surprise. I don't know where the mentality is, because they feel like it was a cop. It was particularly a cop. He was telling me how when he pulls someone over, every now and then they speak English, and he feels, like he said, he feels a little shit, because he feels like why is Quebec speaking French?
I can hear music.
Oh shit. Oh yeah, that's the exit music. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
There, it's gone.
Good. I was like, I can hear music now.
We're good. So what do you make of that? Of people, because it's so weird to me.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the situation exactly, but I can talk for me. Speaking English is a huge advantage. It comes with some downsides, but it's a huge advantage, and the downside will come to it afterward. It's first, it's a tool in a toolbox. So you have that tool or you don't have it. Right. And when you have it, you're more flexible when you're meeting people. So if you're meeting someone speaking English, you can
whip it out. Yeah.
And start speaking English, and then it eases the communication with the other person. Right. So that's, I think, at the first level of everything, it's a good, tool to communicate. And then comes, there's a proud associate to learn another language too.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's a challenge in itself. It's not easy.
Yeah.
So I think that when people are saying I should speak English or should learn English, I think that they are saying it like, first I need the tool to communicate properly since I'm surrounded by English speakers, and then it's a challenge in itself for the person to learn it, because it's a language and it requires will, and it requires work to learn a new language. So I think that those two things, and everyone want to learn a new language, or at least they say it.
I would say English speakers are probably mostly the exception to that.
Yeah,
and I don't say that proudly, but I think that's the truth. Like, and again, in America, in Canada, generally speaking, like, if you don't see the benefit in learning another language, it's very difficult to bucker down and do it.
You need to see the benefits. So
yes.
This is the tool part.
Yes, it has to be a tool.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the part. Downsides was what I find the most difficult speaking English is when I start learn English. It was when you speak, it goes fast, and you need to think in English to speak it. And when we first met, I thought in French and then translate word in English, and it was kind of not good.
Yeah.
So that's the downside. So now I'm working 75% of my time in English, and I find hard to switch back to French, or when I'm speaking French, my sentences are structured in English. So it's kind of,
what's crazy, because you're a lot more proficient in English than I am in French, but when I was in Quebec and I was learning French, I felt that a little bit. Like there were some times where I was pushing my vocabulary, for example, and it felt like if I gained a word in French, I lost a word in English. Like I would find situations where I'm looking for a word and I'm like, this rarely happened to me before. I'm like, what friggin' word is that? And I'm trying to think about it. It's like eventually you get it, but language is such a weird thing. I don't understand how people can speak like 6 languages.
I don't know how good they are in 6 language.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't be able to tell, eh?
Yeah, it would be hard to tell, just being good at speaking English, and I'm not considering myself good at speaking English.
No, dude, you're really good at speaking English.
Actually, I have to focus more.
Yeah.
When I'm speaking English
versus French.
Yeah,
but from an outside perspective, like, you're pretty damn good. We're also critical of ourselves so much, right?
Yeah.
Like when I say stuff in French, even when people tell me, no, like you said that right, in my head I'm like, no, I didn't. You're just being nice, you dick.
Yeah.
Right?
It happens
it's like
all
this
the time.
Paranoia.
Yes. And it's funny because one of the downside, I agree with you, you forget your native language word. So most of the time I'm speaking French and I have to use the English word to express something, an idea, because I work 75% of the time in English. So the English word come easier than the French one. So it's kind of, one of the downsides speaking English or a second language all the time. So, when I'm speaking French a lot, like for a week or two nonstop, and I don't speak English at all, then the English is hard to come back.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, all this, I think that practice makes perfect. And for me, my switch will never be perfect. It's kind of, it will never be like, oh, French, English, French. I think that it will always need preparation for me to speak English. When I came to Nova Scotia, I'm listening to, English podcasts all the time. So when I'm hearing English, it comes naturally. I understand it directly.
Right.
But at the restaurant this morning, the lady had an accent.
Yeah. Oh, the accents. Yes. Yeah.
And then it was not like this articulated version of English. It was like a more direct and
East Coast accent.
Yes. And yeah, I had to focus more,
Yeah.
even if normally it comes naturally.
Yeah. That's true though. That's even true with me in English. Some accents, it's
Yeah.
like holy shit, man. Like
So
you've
this
got to
is
really concentrate.
yeah, and it's very it's very organic. You're going interacting with someone,
Yeah.
and it a conversation happens with at least two person. So
Yeah, exactly. It's a two-way street.
There's the part that I perceive, and there's the part that the other person express.
Yeah.
And depending of the quality of both filters,
Yeah.
sometimes the message can go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
This morning, our conversation for word definition, sometimes we try to
Yeah.
talk about concept, and we realize that we don't have the same definition for the same word, and then we're like, okay, that was good. No.
Yeah, that was interesting actually. That's a good thing to get into. So me and Luke have been talking, I don't know, we must have 15 hours in now.
Yeah.
Since you've been here. So up really late just talking about very complex issues, and this morning we were talking about freedom.
Yep.
And in French there's one word for free. There's liberté.
Yep.
So liberté is liberty.
Yep.
But there's only one word. In English, we have liberty and freedom, which have slightly different connotations. And so this whole time we were having this conversation debating about freedoms and what it means. And then you actually clicked in and you were like, wait a minute. Maybe we have different definitions. And then when we talked about it a little bit, we're like, oh, wait, yeah. So it's a language thing. And it's so crazy because for me, you can have that with someone who speaks your own language.
Yeah.
Right? And you can have it with someone who speaks a different language. Like if you don't disagree on the definitions, if you don't understand what someone is really trying to say, you can screw things up so much, right? And it creates all this conflict.
So guess how difficult for diplomats, international diplomats, it is to communicate properly.
Oh, dude, crazy.
Man, just this freedom word, it was different. And we had an argument this morning on, some concept around it. And we were like, okay, so is the definition, is it the same? And then we explained each other and it was not. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of broke down every argument that we had, and we realized that it was just a matter of definition.
Definition, yeah.
Nothing else.
Nothing else.
And
exactly.
Then, wow. Okay.
Crazy, eh?
So let's think about Canada and China then.
Yeah.
How difficult it should be just
different
to,
alphabet.
Yeah. And crazy. Language word, and how when we are speaking or talking, it goes fast. Word are flowing, and to maintain this flow, we need to think fast. So I think that we don't have time to really think about word definition. Mm-hmm. So we are taking our own definition of a word and we are applying it to a conversation.
Right.
So it can bring some
and that's with one word, but I've also seen it with phrases. Yeah. Like there's something when I first went to Quebec and I was telling them, people would always ask, they'd be speaking to me in English and they'd say, do you know French? I said, well, I learned a little bit in high school, but it was French and, it's pretty bad. And they would say, you should speak French. And now as an English speaker, that's very direct and it's a little rude.
Yeah.
Because because to me, it's like you should speak French. Like, come on, speak French. What are you doing? You're in Quebec. But that's not what they meant.
Yeah. That's
not what they meant, because I've had very nice people and very good friends of mine, when I was there, say that to me, and they don't mean it. They don't mean it like that. They mean it like, you should practice French with me.
Yep.
They don't mean it like you should speak French.
Yes.
And it's so interesting because even though I know that, when I speak with someone in Quebec and they say it to me, I still get that initial emotional response where it's like, you dick. And then I'm like, oh wait, no, he doesn't mean it like that. This is completely a language barrier,
and,
right?
And that's another good example, when we are learning English at school. Basically, actually at school, when I were at school. Mm-hmm. So when I was at school, so maybe 20 years ago, 25,
No, you're not that old, dude. Come on.
25 years ago,
What?
when I was starting learning English.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay,
What
so
age do you start?
it starts primary school,
Primary, okay. So you're 5, 6.
3rd years of primary school. So you're
Third
like
year.
5, 6, 6, 7 years old.
Yeah, okay.
You start
okay.
learning English.
Yeah.
But when you're learning it, first you learn French, and then you learn English, and they are when they taught me how English work, the vocabulary and everything, the grammar, there was association with French words, so they built bridge between French and English, so it's easier for the kid to understand how English work. So it's a good example, for us, I mean, okay, I will talk for me. Then for me, should is conditional, but conditional, you should speak French. It's not like,
it's like if you want.
Yeah.
It's
conditional.
Yeah, in English it's implied that you better.
So
it's good for you if you would.
So
right.
So in language, in communication, there's many level of communication, inside, this kind of subtlety can create conflicts.
Yeah, it's so crazy to me, man. I learned so much when I was in Quebec about language and why we have these issues. I think there's a few reasons why there's still this gap between Quebec and English Canada, and I think one of them is there's still this idea of Quebec being special, and I think that's due. I think it is very distinct. I mean, you have a whole different language, and obviously we just spoke about how language is so integral into your identity, right? But from the outside, when someone within the country says, I feel we should be our own nation, the emotional response from the other side is, oh, you think you're better than us. It's not always the case. Like, you cannot consider yourself better but still want to maintain your own identity, right?
The better part of it, I don't think that it's wrong. I think that genuinely speaking, since actually historically the French lost the war against the English, and then I think that when you're losing a war, by default you feel diminished.
Yes, that's definitely a key point.
So I think that we're, at least there's kind of this vibe of we're at least as good as you, kind of, all the time.
Obviously, all
the time, and then the nation part comes with, oh, we're able to do it, so we don't need you, kind of. And it's just, I think it comes down to communication, because I know a lot of people in Canada, and between the narrative that media can show versus what people are saying when you're interacting directly with them, unless they are all lying, and I would be very surprised about it. I think that genuinely speaking, everyone respects everyone, or most of the time. And sometimes what you don't know scares you, like everyone on both sides, Canadian, Quebec people, when you don't know something, there's this scare, that
there's fear, for sure.
Fear, scare, and you become, the communication become complicated at that point. And
I mean, I agree, man. Because the other thing too, I've seen this quite a bit. This is how I imagine this scenario going. So I'd be interested to see how you would see it in this situation. I see people in English Canada who have this idea about Quebec. They feel like, because they want to separate, and not just that, but one of the reasons, because they want to separate, they feel like maybe they think they're better. And then you sort of get this notion that maybe they're a little rude. But here's where I think that comes from. I think if people, say, travel from the east to the west, they're going to Ontario, and they drive through Quebec, or they go to Quebec to visit. They might go to McDonald's, they might go to a restaurant. And depending on where you're from in Canada, you probably don't know French very well. Like New Brunswick, yes. Quebec, yes. a lot of people in Nova Scotia speak French, but like honestly, my French wasn't good enough to really communicate well until I actually moved there. So you go in there, and you feel a little dumb because you don't speak French.
Mm.
Even though you won't admit that, you might say to yourself, "Oh, I don't have to speak French." Like bullshit. The reason you're feeling insecure is because you don't know how to speak French, and you're in Quebec. Like that's just human psychology, right? So then they go up to someone and they order food or something, and the person that they're talking with is a little nervous, probably because maybe they don't speak English very well, right? I mean, even you, like your English was really great, but even you mentioned that when we were first met, there was that initial thing, right? And your English was like, it wasn't like, okay, we have to struggle with this guy. Like when you spoke English to me, I was like, okay, like we're good to go, right? And I started talking like very technically about weightlifting and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I was very, like for you, I could tell right away that your English was good, but I don't think, it's interesting to me to know that you still had that initial like, okay, God, like I have to work, I have to work for this. So what I see happening is I go up as an English speaker and I go up and I try and order something in English, and the person gets a little taken aback because they don't understand English very well. Yeah. And then there's maybe a little bit of pride in there where it's like, come on, this is like, you're in Quebec, speak French. Yeah. Like rightly so, right? And it's like, okay, there's that. And then it's like a battle, right? Because it's like, who's willing to look stupid?
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So then the person in the Quebecois that's speaking French, they're like, they have this part of them where I don't really want to speak English because I'm not really comfortable in it. And then what I see most of the time is they do anyway. They struggle through it, and maybe it's a little broken, but they get through it well enough. And then maybe there's a little bit of resentment that they had to speak in a language and look stupid. Yeah. So what I see is both people have an entirely misrepresentation or a misinterpretation of what the other is thinking. The English person is saying, oh, this person, he's just being rude with me, and he's so rude and he doesn't want to speak English with me, and he knows English, which honestly a lot of people outside of Quebec do assume that Quebec people speak English really well.
Oh. I'm working in a company that, there's two official language, French and English. Or English and French, as I said earlier. Yeah. Depending on, if we have a meeting with 7 person in it, and there's only one person that speaks English, the meeting happens in English.
In English, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So maybe it's a, we are. I don't even know the word in English. Yeah, lazy. So. Let's call that laziness. I think that it's easier for French people to speak in English than English people to speak French. So then, we decide to all switch in English because we are lazy and we don't want to make the effort to speak in French and then have to explain a second time some concept.
And translate it, yeah.
Yeah. So now what I'm doing, if there's multiple person in the meeting, there's, let's say, 4 people speaking French, 2 people speaking English. I'm speaking to people in French, to French people in French, and English people in English. And then it forces the English people to hear French and try to, and I don't mind repeating it, even in English, translating it. But at first I will interact with the French person in the meeting in French, and then if it's necessary, I will translate it to the English people. And most of the time, they thank me. Yeah. Because they're like, they're saying I didn't understand totally what what was said, but most of it, I understood, and that was enough. Yep. And I think that, that's an assumption that French people are doing.
That takes a lot, though, man, for you. Like that takes a lot. Like I can't imagine being in a position where I'm talking to someone and I have to translate everything for someone who doesn't speak the language constantly. Like, good for you that you can, like, that's a huge responsibility and it's a lot of work. And I feel like a lot of people would get, like, annoyed by that.
Yes, but, I think that at some point, as I said, I think that by default, everyone is, including me, lazy. When I can avoid making unnecessary effort, I do it. Yeah. And comes down to efficiency, comes down to being faster to doing, the same task, or automating everything around us. Basically, we're lazy.
Yeah.
As I won't generalize to the whole species, but I will do it. I will say, for me, I can
lazy.
say that, when I can save effort, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So yes, it requires, more effort, but it comes down to a kind of cost and analysis, cost and benefits analysis. I think that it's more beneficial to do it that way. Than it costs the people.
I love that you say that though, man, because like when I was in situations where we're gonna pour up a couple drinks here. You're gonna hear some glasses dingling.
Yes.
But when I was at work, this is what's interesting. When I was at work in Quebec, and I worked in I worked in English, and it was sort of a weird thing because a part of you wants the person to speak English with you so you can actually communicate
Fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other part wants them to speak to you in French so that you can learn the language.
Yep.
So it's like this constant battle where you're trying to like meet in the middle. And what I found, and this was a difficult thing for me. So me and you, for example, our whole relationship is built on English.
Yep.
We've spoken very little French in between us. And so I've tried, not with you, but I've tried in the past with other Quebec friends that our relationship is built in English, to switch it to French so I could learn French.
Yep.
It was so difficult because everything we had was built on the one language.
And when we first met and I had to, make effort on thinking in French and translating the idea in English, for me it was nearly academic. Like, I was learning, I was practicing.
Yeah.
So for me, there was a benefit doing it because I had to practice.
Right.
And, we are taught at a very young age that we are a small nation surrounded by
Big nation.
a big nation, and that nation speak English.
Yeah.
Right? So you need to practice because the effort that you're putting at practicing English will allow you to be more lazy in the future.
Right. Yeah.
So the better you are, the more lazy you can be.
Yeah. That's true, eh? It's so interesting though, because to be honest, it was hard for me to find people that were willing to. And this gets back to anyone who says that like Quebec people don't want to speak English with you. It's not that at all. They're probably just trying to get the cap on the rum bottle here. Cheers, brother.
Cheers. That's good.
That's good Nova Scotia rum.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, anyone who says that like Quebec people don't want to speak English to you, that's not been my experience at all. I lived there for 2 years, and I've been working there, as you know, quite a bit over the last like 2 years as well. So like 4 years, I've been regularly in Quebec. It's not been my experience that people don't want to speak English. Yeah. It's been my experience that they're not as confident. They feel threatened. They feel a little scared that they're going to make a mistake in a different language.
Yeah.
And that comes off wrong. Yeah. And it's not their fault, but it doesn't come off right to English speakers. That's been my experience. And I've actually had trouble finding people in Quebec when I was living there that would speak French with me because they wanted to learn English better.
Yes.
They wanted to improve their English.
Yeah.
So this whole thing that Quebec hate English is bullshit. It's not true.
It depends. It depends on people. I would break down this situation to individuals. I don't want to generalize, but the people I know, in Quebec City, and I know, a lot of them because I'm living there. They are enough curious and they are enough willing to learn English and to speak it and to practice it when they have the opportunity to practice it, because there's a benefit to them.
Right.
To practice English.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's pride. They are proud people, and when you sound silly in English or in another language, because definitely that we sound silly when we're speaking English. The pride, take a hit.
Yeah.
So, but at some point, I think that the benefit outweighed the cost.
Yeah.
Right. So the benefit practicing English and getting better at it, allowing the person to be more lazy after. That outweigh the small period when the person will feel that not proud, basically.
Yeah.
So I think, and I can be wrong, but I'm seeing it like cost and benefit.
Yeah.
And the level of laziness, and we are. I will again speak for me. As an individual, I know that when I'm doing an amount of effort for something, it's because later it will benefit me, or it will allow me to be more lazy.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. Well, it's all about skill development, right?
If it makes sense.
Yeah. It's about skill development. If it's going to make things better in the future. You know?
And lazy is not bad, actually, because lazy means that you have to put less effort to do the same thing, and then you can put that effort somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
efficiency.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm not talking about laziness like it's a bad thing. I'm talking about laziness as more efficiency concept.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's cool.
So learning language is definitely around that, I think.
Yeah.
For most people in Quebec. And yes, there's a pride dimension to it. And I think that, maybe one of the things that, block, or maybe, no, not block, but something that is an obstacle for, English speakers to learn French is pride, because we all have our own pride. And worse than that for them, if we are doing this cost and benefits, and they don't have any benefits doing it.
Yeah, that. Yeah, it honestly, it was really hard for me to see the benefit when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like, there's some benefits with getting government jobs, because if you're bilingual, you can get access to slightly more government jobs.
Yeah.
Particularly like ambulance and that kind of stuff. Like there is some benefit, but it's normally not enough to push you to learn the language. And it's also very hard to learn when you're not submersed into it. Right? Like I feel like just because English is like the dominant language in the world, I feel like even if you don't speak it, you're still surrounded by it.
Yeah.
Like you hear music, like a lot of the famous songs that come out. And obviously, by the way, Quebec has some great music. Like Quebec has a whole, like it's not just a language, it's a whole culture built on the language, which is just amazing. And that's something that's really cool to get into as well. But I do think that because like Hollywood movies, it's all in English, right? Yeah, you can translate it, but which is another interesting thing. A lot of Quebecois that I've met prefer to watch the movies in English as opposed to French.
Yeah.
So again, it's not this like, it's this perception that they're just trying to completely avoid English. It's not the case. And I've even had this, you let me know what you think about this. I've had people who have told me that they are not Canadian, that they are Quebecois, and that they want to separate. But they were so nice to me.
Yeah.
They were so welcoming. It wasn't like, you shouldn't be living here in Quebec, you English bastard.
Yeah.
It was like, no, I just think Quebec should be its own nation.
Yeah.
And they were fine with me being there. They didn't hate me. They were like, we had great conversations. They were kind.
Yeah.
So again, wanting to separate, and we can talk all day about whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, or if it's a majority or a minority. It doesn't matter. I don't think wanting to separate is alone an insult to the rest of Canada.
That's a good question.
Or maybe a better way of saying it is that people who want to separate don't mean it as an insult to the rest of Canada.
I don't think that they mean it no, I don't think that it is meant to be an insult to Canada. I think that, it's complicated. It's complicated. It's political. There's a lot of, ego, I think, behind the nationalism of Quebec. And it's too polarized, I think, for me to express an opinion on that. I have an opinion on it, and I won't share it here. I have an opinion. It's my personal opinion, but it's I think that it's a complicated issue.
Yeah.
And I think that miscommunication doesn't help. I think to come back to our conversation about definition and words and stuff. The better I learn English, and you can ask my employee, actually. I have some work in Alberta, and I'm asking them, am I using the right word? Or what is the right word for specifically express that idea? Because I don't know. And the more I'm interacting with them and the more I'm learning about language, I'm discovering dimension to other English speakers that I didn't know about, because I know the language more. It helps me to understand them more.
Yes. Yeah.
So, if you're hearing some politician in Quebec, just by, how they speak, or they're nonverbal when they are, doing some press conference, you can tell that they don't care a lot about speaking English and understanding it correctly. You can see it.
Yeah, that's that's like, this hits on a whole other level. And again, your English is so much better than my French, but I felt that a little bit. Like, when I was learning French, I felt that there were certain points where I was thinking about concepts which I couldn't really think about in English. And I just dipped my finger in it. Like, it wasn't enough to get really deep, but I could feel that like language, the language that you're speaking in entirely shapes how you think.
Yeah.
And when you're considering different topics and complex ideas, it's like, dude, like, it's so unbelievable.
Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah, and it just makes me wonder, like, this move towards, say, English being the dominant language, and slowly other languages seem to be dying out, like, over time. It makes me wonder what we're missing, because we've been talking about French and English, but Russian, for example, is very, very emotional. Apparently, I have no idea, but what I'm told is it's, like, in terms of describing suffering and describing emotion, it's so much better at it than English.
Yeah.
So for me, as someone who doesn't speak Russian, I'm missing this whole part of life because I don't know the language, and I'm wondering how much we're missing.
I don't think that you're missing part of life, but I think that since language, I don't know if it shapes, but definitely probably influence the way you think. I think that you might experience life differently. Kind of. Yes, totally. I can get it. I think that there's, I don't know if it is a official discipline or domain in university in social science, but there's definitely some researchers that are producing documentation on language shaping thoughts. There's researchers, I will send you names later. That's interesting. But and they are doing videos on YouTube, and you can literally find them on the internet. And there's some, I think that there's interest there. Yeah.
Here's an interesting question, and this is a hypothetical because you're engaged. And I asked this quite a bit to Quebec people, because I'm genuinely interested in what people say about this, because I've considered it a lot. I've been lived in Quebec for 2 years, and I've considered this a lot. But dating someone in French, or in dating a Quebecois, for example, and us speaking French or us speaking English.
Yeah.
Because I feel like for you to be a kind, decent person, you don't need to be that deep into the language. Like for you to have for example, if you're an English speaker, again, going to McDonald's in Quebec for the first time and neither of you speak the other language, you just need to be like, assume the other person's not an asshole and just be like, numero deux. Like, it doesn't even matter how bad you pronounce it.
Yep.
Just have a laugh with them, right?
Yeah.
Just assume they're not an asshole.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll assume you're not an asshole and you'll have a little bit of fun and it's fine. So not speaking another language is no excuse to be an asshole.
Yeah.
But in terms of relationships,
yeah,
there's a certain, like for us to have this conversation now, there's no way we could have it in French because my French isn't as proficient as your English. There's no possible way. So when you're talking about like a romantic relationship,
yeah,
because I've thought about this, I was like, I don't know. I know I can't now. I wouldn't be able to have a relationship with someone who spoke another language and me speak their language. It would have to be, the relationship would have to be built in English. But then the other person is missing, again, that side of themselves.
I'm not a psychologist of relationship. What I know that by experience is that you're engaging someone in a relationship, you get to know that person very well, regardless of the language. I think
you know, that's
yeah,
interesting.
because you achieve a high level of intimacy between that person and yourself, and at some point, the language shame that you can feel, it's so not in the same level of environment that you are in right now. So even if you're making mistake, it doesn't matter at all inside this relationship. So it becomes a safe space for you to practice actually the perfect one.
Yeah.
So I think at some point, you can, if you feel something for somebody and it works and the other person speaks another language, I think at some point the level of intimacy that you will have with that person will remove all obstacle for you to feel shame about language. Actually, it's just, you will just speak it, make mistake, and you will have a good laugh about it.
Yeah.
And then you will build on it and you will become better, I think.
That's beautiful, man. You're bringing me to tears.
Yeah.
No, that's beautiful because I think you're right. I think you changed my mind. Because I think you're right. It gets down to assuming the other person is not an asshole, assuming they mean well for you, and trying to have a bit of fun with it and just trying to understand what the other person is saying as opposed to listening to exactly what words they are saying.
Yeah.
That's what it's like when people say you should speak French. They don't mean it like that. They mean it like you should practice French with me.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are they trying to say versus what are they literally saying?
Yeah.
Because clearly because of the language gap, there's a barrier there.
Yeah.
But you overcome that by good faith.
Yeah.
By assuming the other person is a good person and means well for you.
Yeah. And for a person like me that English is not his first language, as I said to you when you were taking the meal from the delivery guy, when an English person is talking to another one, it's very efficient. It's kind of 6 word and everything is said.
Yeah.
And it's a face-to-face conversation when you interact with the delivery guy, and the nonverbal was like, okay, I understand what you're saying, and then and 6 word done, paid, and we were eating basically.
Yep. When
I'm speaking English, I need to articulate my idea with more word. Because I'm not sure that my nonverbal express what I'm saying.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I never thought about that.
So it takes, this is why I told you, being better at learning a language and being better at it allows me to be more lazy. because communicating is not only about word. Yes, word definition is very important, but at some point you can literally communicate and pass your idea to the other person without talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I do it all the time when I'm in Quebec. I talk to welders that their English is not great, and I stumble through French, but it's mostly body language.
Yeah.
It's like pointing. It's like
moving, pointing, and
tone of voice.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge for communication. That's so true though. Like with that simple stuff like meeting and greeting, because for me, like, you know, and I'm sure it's the same for you in French. Like when I'm doing something like that, like handing off food, like I know what's rude. I know what's not rude.
Yeah.
You know, I can just grab the bag. That's rude.
Yeah.
I can grab it and say, "Thank you. Have a good night."
Yeah.
And that's acceptable.
Yep.
I can say, "Hey, thanks. How long was your drive?" And the guy's gonna be like, "Okay, this guy's a little weird." Right? Like I know what to say. I know, but
the right balance.
But when you're speaking a different language, you don't know if it's like
too much.
Should you just say "Merci beaucoup"?
Yeah.
Or should you say, you know, should you just grab it?
Yep.
You know, it really depends.
It depends on, first, the person that comes delivering the food. Different person, different personality, different, you know, different filters for politeness.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on how comfortable I am speaking with that person.
Yeah.
You know, if the person is coming with, you know, a very hard, non-verbal attitude.
Yeah.
You know, I will be, how you doing?
Yeah. That's right.
You know, so it's kind of, it's everything like that is very important when you're communicating. So it comes down to that.
Yeah. Here's something I want to run off you, by you. So I'm in a probably a minority, but I'm a working professional, as you know. You know, I did an engineering degree, and I work in an office environment, and I speak with so many international people. A lot of them, English is not their first language.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not a huge deal if I meet someone with an accent. It's not a huge deal if I meet someone with not even an accent, because there's Australian accents, there's British accents, but even someone that doesn't speak English, like regularly, and they have like a really thick Indian accent, for example. It's not, for me, it's not a huge deal. It's like just another person. But I feel like people that don't work in a professional environment, maybe they work in retail, they work at Walmart, and nothing against that at all, but they're not getting exposure to a lot of foreigners.
Yeah.
Because in engineering, for me, it's, and you know as well, it's regular. You talk with people from all over the world, right? So it's not a big deal. But I think it's hard for me to wrap my head around it, but I think a lot of people, because they're so inside their little bubble, and they have their accent, they have the way they pronounce things, and they have their mannerisms, that whenever someone new comes in, sometimes it's obvious.
It's disruptive. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like a sore thumb. It's sticking out to them.
Yes.
Right?
It comes down, for me, what you're saying is true, is right. For me, it comes down to practice makes perfect. And practice mean effort. Mm-hmm. And effort mean you need to see the benefit for it.
Yeah.
So if I'm a retail person working in a store in Quebec and I don't have to interact with an English speakers, you know, why would I learn it? Yeah. It requires an effort from me, and I don't have any benefit for it because maybe I will meet one per 3 months, right? Yep. I will sound like a fool once in 3 months, and I will have a good laugh with my colleague afterward, and then that's it. You know? So I think that it comes down to, you know,
It's crazy because I've actually seen, there was this one time where someone from the gym that we used to go to in Quebec there, I spoke with him a couple times, and he was biking with his friends, and he saw me and he stopped. He said, "Oh, hey man, how's it going?" You know, we just said, "Hey, hello." It's like, okay, well, we got to get going. You know, we got to get to our campground. And he left, and as he was leaving, his friends were making fun of him. They were like, "Oh, hey, hello, how are you?" And I was like I didn't even realize. I was like, like I'm an English guy in Quebec. Like it's not a big deal for me to hear a Quebec accent. But his friends were like, oh, blah, blah, blah. like mocking him. I was like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
that's interesting, eh?
Yeah.
But it's yeah. I don't
Having
know
a
how
good
that.
laugh, So I have a very good example for you. I was in a meeting with a South America lady, and my first language is French. Her first language is, I don't know, but Spanish or Portuguese,
Yeah.
depending on where she's from. And so we were communicating in English, and her English and my English was not perfect, So just understanding each other was a challenge. So first it was a team meeting, so cameras off, and we were speaking, we were talking, and we were exchanging ideas. And at some point, the flow of idea, we weren't able to communicate properly our ideas. So then we said, let's turn on our camera to see each other. And then we were moving with our arms, expressing stuff, and we were like that and that, and we were like, even with the documents, and we were like just and we finally we looked like fools.
Yeah.
Literally, but we had a good laugh.
Yeah.
About it, because we weren't that good. And then after the meeting, a meeting that probably for English speakers it would have took like what, 15 minutes maybe max. For us it took like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Because the first 5 minutes
Yeah.
was just each other. We didn't understand what we were saying, basically.
Yeah.
And then just with cameras and language and nonverbal, we're like, do you understand what I tried to say, right?
Yeah.
And the other person on the other side, like, I think yes. Do you mean this? And me saying, I don't know. Let's do it again. Yes.
That's great though, man.
And having a good laugh about it, yes. It helps. It helps. And I think, not taking myself too seriously is a good way to learn.
Yeah.
For me. It's for me. I'm talking for me. I think that for me, a good trick to learn something, even if I'm looking like a fool sometimes, is I'm not taking myself too seriously. Having a good laugh about me, about myself, sometimes I sound really bad.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, that's how kids act, right? Like kids learn at such an incredibly fast pace.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable how fast kids learn things like language and skills. And that's how they do it. Like they're trying to throw a ball and it goes behind them somehow, and then they laugh, and then they turn around, they pick it up. Like that's how you learn.
Yeah. No ego. And
no ego. Yeah.
And this is what's probably hard, and I have another good example about it. I initially worked in a specific domain of engineering, and then I switched, but I was able to achieve a certain level in the, let's say, domain A. But when I started domain B, I would have liked to have the same level, like right off the bat. But I had to re-escalate every steps to achieve the same thing. It means to relearn stuff.
Yeah.
It means that the process to achieve that level in the domain A, I was younger and my ego wasn't that high at that moment. So I was, prone to have a good laugh about myself every day.
Yeah.
But right now, for domain B, it was different because I was not excellent, but at least good in what I was doing. So I would and you like to feel good about what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So you want to achieve that right now for domain B, and you're saying to yourself, it's just a switch of domain, basically discipline, and it's not working like that. So you have to go through the learning process, and you have to put your ego,
Yeah.
aside
Garbage.
to learn again, and then you realize, and I'm still studying at university, and then you realize that you don't need that much your ego,
Mm-hmm.
you need it sometimes when you have to have a relationship based on power with someone.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you need it sometimes, but most of the time when you're learning stuff and you're interacting with common people like me, you don't need it.
Yeah. There's
It's
no
just
place
like
for it.
communicate with the person bluntly, and if the other person doesn't answer well, just stop and communicate with someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no place for ego, man. I mean, like you said, there's some situations when you're in perhaps some aggressive negotiations.
Yeah.
Where there's that sort of confidence and that aggressiveness can actually be useful, but generally speaking, and for most people that have issues, for example, between English speakers and French speakers in Canada, there's no damn place for ego, man.
No. There's and language is a barrier. I think that we talked about it a lot.
Yeah.
But at some point, when you really get to learn the individual that you're talking with, it's just another human, mostly the same sets of values, kind of, are similar, and there's no place for that.
Yeah.
No place. No
I mean,
place
and that gets down to one of the fundamental Canadian values, which is, well, really, it's a Western value, but it's like, you do you, I'll do me.
Yeah.
We don't have to be the same, but I can respect the differences. Yeah. And that's generally speaking, that's what I felt when I was in Quebec.
Yeah.
They didn't hate that I was English. They didn't want me out of the province. They just wanted to do their own thing. They wanted me to respect them and me to do my own thing. And that again, and that's actually a great way of how the Canadian value supersedes the Quebec value.
Yep.
Because the vast majority of Quebecois don't hate English people, and they don't hate the English language. They just want to do their own damn thing, and that's a core Canadian value.
Yes, and when it comes to hating, I think that it can be triggered by many things, groups, or many factors can trigger the hate in itself. But I think that individual per individual, if you're taking them individually, no way. Genuine hate towards another individual, why is that?
Yeah. It
takes so much effort to hate someone.
Yeah. It's so true, eh?
It takes effort, and I'm lazy, so I don't have time for that.
I don't have time to hate people. Yeah, it's so much. They're just you have to carry that around. Like, this was an interesting thought that crossed my mind there the other day. I was thinking about responsibility, how like it's so important to take responsibility for things in your life, but what are the things you're responsible for? It's the things you carry. Yeah. You carry what you do at work. You carry your team. But if you are carrying hate, you are taking responsibility for that as well. If you are carrying bitterness and resentment and this idea that like everyone in Quebec is an asshole or everyone outside of Quebec is an asshole, you have to carry that with you all the time.
Yes.
And that's taking room out of your bag, man. You could be filling that with other things.
Yep, and better things.
And much better things.
Yes, much constructive, better things.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was when that hit me, I was like, holy shit. You only got so much strength. You can only carry so much. don't carry hatred, man. It's all
Exactly.
about the love.
Even if you're doing weightlifting, you won't be strong enough.
Exactly. Yeah. Weightlifting gets down to the kilo. 1 extra kilo in there. Good to go. Yeah. How's the rum?
Good. I will probably take.
Take a little bit more.
Yeah,
You're
I
getting a
will
little
take
bit
a little
lower.
bit more.
I hope I took a bit more than you, or you're really outpacing me.
Yeah.
That's gonna get the people, the French versus the English going in the comments.
Oh,
Oh yeah, the French
He's
people can
drinking
drink.
a lot.
He can drink a lot more.
Just to reassure you, I'm Asian, and I answer on the principle of, do you know the concept of Asian flush? Like
Asian flush.
Yes, this is, we're not very good at fighting alcohol.
Really?
Basically. Oh yeah.
I'd never heard that.
I'm getting a feeling right now. So.
Oh well, me too, but that's because I'm a nerd. Actually, some nerds. No, I don't know. Do you know any nerds that can drink a lot?
Do I know nerds that drink a lot? Good question. No.
I don't think so, man.
And do you know what? I don't know that much people really know them personally. Yeah. I don't know that much.
Their drinking habits.
Yeah, their drinking habits. I don't know a lot of people. I don't know a lot of drinking habits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But the people that I know, there's literally, I think that yeah, you're the only nerd.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh. I'm the only nerd. Yeah, I'm a huge nerd. Yeah. For well, the other day you caught me reading. You thought I was working. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I was supposed to be working, and I didn't have that much to do. So Luke walks in my office, and I'm reading evolutionary psychology. And he's like, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm like taking notes and shit. I got a highlighter there. I'm like highlighting and like making notes in my little notebook, and I'm like, "Yeah, sorry."
Yeah, but you didn't do that long. It was just like me opening your door, not being polite, and say, "What's up?
What's going on, man? What's going on?"
So this is a day of work.
Yeah. At least I was wearing pants. That's good news. Yeah. So.
Yep.
How would you define a friend?
Friend. Very good question. I have few friends. I consider you as one.
Me as well, obviously.
Yeah. That's a good question. First, someone that I can talk about mostly every subject.
Mm-hmm. There's very few stuff you can't talk about. Yeah.
And guess what? And I don't know if it's sane, but I said to my girlfriend when we were dating, one of the things that I want us to be is best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important for me, and because it allows us to remove obstacle when we are communicating.
Yeah.
So friends, very important, and then comes down to interest, common interest. Mm-hmm. I can count on one hand the number of friends that I have, real friends. That I can call anytime to talk about anything, and I can go see them anytime that I want, and they know that they can do the same thing for me.
Yeah.
So they can come home and they can sleep at home if they want.
Yeah.
So I have, a few friends. A specific definition, I don't know a specific definition for that.
It's tough, eh?
I feel, though, what a friend is,
Yeah. It's hard to articulate. Yeah. I feel like it's, when you have good news and there's some people you just can't tell?
Yeah.
Because there's going to be this little, like resentment or like jealousy.
Or just, why are you telling me that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that. Yeah.
That's not, to me, that's not a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a friend you should be able to tell good news to.
Yeah.
And they were actually happy for you. It's not like, oh, good for you. It's like, no, dude, that's amazing.
Yes.
Like, I'm really happy for you. And then the flip side is you should be able to tell them bad news, because this is something that's more subtle, but Sometimes some people you tell them bad things about you
Yeah.
and they're a little happy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Oh,
like,
interesting.
oh, I tried to squat 400 pounds and I failed. And they're like, oh,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Because now you're not as strong as I am. There's
Oh,
like a little bit of happiness in there for it.
oh, okay.
As
Okay,
opposed to
okay.
being like, oh shit, man, I'm sorry. Like you worked really hard for that and you put in the effort and it didn't work out for you.
Yeah.
And so like who you can tell bad news to and who you can tell good news to me, that's very important in terms of a friendship.
Yeah.
And it honestly, man, like I did an episode about this pretty recently, but this really upsets me. Like
Okay.
when I sit and think about how much suffering is in the world and how life is suffering, and we have all these diseases and shit to deal with. And if you have good news,
Yeah.
and you don't have anyone that you can tell that's going to be happy for you,
Oh man.
dude, that like just thinking about that, I'm like, fuck.
Yes. And there was a book actually. It was the topic was motivation, and one of the concept was you materialize what you're seeing. If it stays in your head, it's kind of it stays virtual, let's say. And when you're seeing it, you literally create it, because now you create sounds that express the thing.
Right.
And this was written in the book differently and way more pretty than what I'm saying right now.
Hashtag rum.
Yes, and the book was in French. So yes, and the concept, was pretty amazing actually. Around, when you're thinking something, it's like in your desk drawer, and yeah, it's good. That's there, but it's in your desk drawer, and you can forget it. And at some point, when you say it, it's kind of you're taking it out of your desk drawer, and then you put it under light, and now you can see it, and then you know that it exists, kind of. And it was based on the motivation is based on this one. It's one of the concepts of motivation, basically. You say what you want to be true, basically.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you say something, you're putting it out there, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is good. Even if what you're saying is wrong, it's good to put it out there and have someone tell you it's wrong.
Yes.
Or hopefully maybe they tell you you're right, and that's a good thing. But yeah, definitely when putting it out into the world, that's the only way you can really know if what you're thinking is
right.
Somewhat right,
Yeah, and I think that's one of the fundamentals of academia. You have to put it out to the outside world to see, so it can be challenged.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it has to be challenged.
Yeah.
And this is something I do too, and this pisses a lot of people off, but like if I'm talking to a Republican, for example, let's take the US politics, Democrat and Republican, like liberal conservative.
This is mostly the only thing that I know about American politics. Democrat, and Republican, and the rest, I don't know. I know that there's a president.
There's a couple things bumping around there, but yeah.
Yeah.
But if I'm talking with a Democrat, I will argue from a Republican perspective. And I'm not doing it to be a dick. I'm doing it because I'm genuinely curious what they are going to say. Like even if I'm like talking with someone and they're making a point that I agree with, I will still challenge them on it because I want to see if they have a better reason to believe it than I do. Because then it gives me a better position, or, and this sucks when this happens, or I find out my position is wrong, but that's good for me.
Yes.
But it kills my ego. It's like, ouch. Damn, that sucks, because I just did a podcast episode about that, and it sucks.
But, being wrong sometimes is a good thing. And, think about it. Think about a world that within this world, what you're seeing is always right. Do you feel how sad you would be because you know you cannot enjoy your righteousness at some point because you're always right. It becomes like a common thing.
Yeah. That's true with like relationships too, like your partner, but also your friends. Like nobody wants a friend that's like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Like every time you say something, like, oh yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah.
It's like you would like that for the first 5 minutes, and then you'd be like, dude, do you have any opinions of your own? And the same thing with partners. And some people like this, but I think these people are like psychopaths, to be honest. But some people want a partner that's like, oh, you're always right, honey. But most people don't want that. Most people want a partner that's going to be like, and it doesn't feel good in the moment.
Yeah.
But over time, you want someone that's like, no, you're wrong about that.
Yes. Especially for something that counts the person. Sometimes I'm challenging my girlfriend on things that, it's not important. So there's not, big issue to solve. But when something counts and then you challenge, I don't even know if it's the right word, but challenge. You challenge a little bit her ideas about it, or you challenge the causality of why she wants this, or then you have a good discussion with her. And it's when your relationship is based on trust and love, whatever love is, but I can feel it and I cannot articulate it, but I can feel it. So if your relationship is based on trust and love, basically I think that you can, overcome
that small thing. Yeah, love is such a weird thing because, like you said, you can't articulate it. But, I sat down a little while ago and tried to come up with my own mantra.
Okay.
And I came up with things like cheesy stuff, like study like you're in university, work like your life depends on it, But when I wrote down all the important things in my life, and the thing that was in the middle, as corny as it is, was love. Because, who you choose to spend time with, that should be based on like love to some extent. Who your partner is, it should be. What your job is, what your hobbies are.
Yeah.
So it's literally the connecting element of everything in your life.
Fundamentally, you need to love yourself.
Yeah, well, that's
to get yourself out to the outside world.
Do you think most people love themselves or don't love themselves?
I don't know.
Do you think it's a love-hate?
Good question.
I think about this sometimes. I'm like, oh.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I would say that, to be functional, I think that you have to love yourself to a certain level at the minimum, because if you don't love yourself at all, you won't be able to function. So, and after that, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so weird because
I know for me.
Yeah.
But for other person, hard to say.
Yeah, I always wonder that because it's so hard to tell from the outside, right? Because people put on this front that they're so confident and that they're so in love with themselves, but I don't think that's always representative. There was someone at the gym once that we went to. I'm not going to say who it is, but she was like really confident, and I never spoke to her because I don't think her English was great, so we never really communicated much and we were in separate parts of the gym all the time, but she seemed nice and she seemed happy. And then one of my friends was in the girls' bathroom, and she came out and she was like, dude, like that girl was crying like crazy.
Okay.
And I remember thinking like, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
Because like you would never ever think, like she came off with this confidence and this essence of like self-love and self-appreciation.
Okay.
But just getting that little glimpse.
Yeah.
And I saw her come out of the bathroom, like, because she walked by me to get to the door, and like you'd never tell. And it just made, I think about it, it's like, it always makes me wonder what's really going on inside of people's heads in terms of confidence and self-esteem and ego.
I think that it's everyone's secret garden, kind of, it's and I don't really want to know what's in there, it's just, it's their thing, and everyone has their responsibility at some point to manage their own things. Sometimes I feel bad, sometimes I feel good. What's up, right? At the end of the day, I need a salary to eat and pay my rent or my house and my car, and you need to function in the framework that we have right now. So I think that there's a need for loving yourself at a minimum level.
Because it's like because I think about this too, like there's no easy way out. Like one of the things that I've never really hated myself for it, but I've always wondered, is the fact that I'm so introverted. Because introverted people, I think you're quite introverted as well.
Yeah.
Right.
To some extent.
But yeah. I mean, I know you enjoy social interactions. I enjoy social interactions, but generally I'm introverted, and they tend to be more like engineers and CEOs, like really, really successful people are generally introverts. But I see extroverts sometimes, and I'm like, damn, I wonder what that feels like.
To be
extroverted. And it's not that I'm like, I think it's bad to be an introvert, but I just wonder what it's like to gain energy. Because I've had people, extroverts, like friends of mine, and they can't understand what it's like to not want to always be around people.
Oh.
They just want to be,
Yeah, but do you think that being extrovert is wanting to be surrounded by people all the time?
Maybe not all the time, but like generally, like they get their energy from social interactions.
I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't know if it's okay to associate, the need to be surrounded by people and being introvert or extrovert. I don't think that those concepts are that much related together.
I think it's like the core piece of it. Like,
because I'm being honest with you, I'm considering myself as extrovert.
Really?
Yeah, to some extent, yes. I like
to some extent, yeah.
To some extent, yes. And I did some personality test, the Myers-Briggs test, 4 times actually.
Yeah.
2 times with a psychologist, and 1 time with HR. I'm extrovert, and there's a specific type of extrovert, and I like to be alone. And I had a teacher at university. She was the best teacher I ever had, and she was good, energetic, everything. She was very generous and extrovert, or at least you feel that when you're around her. I'm taking this.
Yeah.
And we quit.
Take the rum and we are good to go. All right, my friend.
That was a very good discussion.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
This is big, man. I know this is like, recording.
Yeah.
I got the headphones on, got the mics on.
It was totally new, man. The concept of and hearing my own voice, but in my ear, and hearing exactly what other people are hearing when I'm talking. Yeah. It's new. It's a total new thing for me. And my voice suck.
No, come on, dude. Everyone thinks our voice sucks until you this is a weird thing, but like once you listen to your voice enough recording, it starts to sound good to you.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, it's weird.
I will try it.
I don't like it. But like now I'm very conscious of the things I say.
Oh, okay.
But not the sound of my voice.
Oh, okay.
So I'll be like, oh shit, I used the wrong word there. God damn, I'm an idiot.
Oh, probably I will listen to me and then I will say, oh, that's the wrong word. Or I should have said that differently.
Oh,
Or,
dude, you have no idea.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. For anyone listening, yes, I do recognize that I say the wrong words
Oh, yeah.
sometimes.
Oh, and you know, it's in
Yeah.
English, so it will be worse.
No, dude, it's all part of the process, you know.
Yeah.
I like to leave that shit in there because that's what a conversation is like.
Yeah.
A conversation isn't like this edited product that's like perfect.
Yeah.
It's like messy.
Yeah.
People say the wrong words.
Yeah.
People misunderstand, and you work through it, and that's it. You move on.
Sometimes I'm listening to other podcasts and they're good.
Yeah.
They are very good.
Yeah. Yeah, some people are masters, eh?
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, Peterson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sam
They
Harris.
are good. And even, you know, there's one podcast. It was between Jordan Peterson and Stephen Hicks.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had to listen to it like 5 times
To understand it.
to understand it was packed
Yeah.
concepts and things. So I was like, I don't understand what they are saying.
Yeah, dude.
And I had to, you know, re-listen to it and put it in context. And then I bought books to understand some concept that they were talking about because I was like,
Yeah. That's pretty bad when you go away with like 5 books you got to read. You're like,
yeah.
oh shit.
And then you realize that how dumb you are, right?
Oh, that's the worst, man. When you listen to someone talk and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
What am I going to do about this?
So cheers to that, man.
Cheers, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having
And you know what? I learned that one of my Quebec friends told me that when you say I appreciate you in French, it normally is like I appreciate you, but like if you're in a relationship, you say I appreciate you, but I don't love you. Something like that, right?
Yeah.
In English, I appreciate you is literal.
Oh.
It means I really appreciate you as a person. And you don't hear it very often, but when someone says it, they normally mean it.
Oh.
I appreciate you, my friend.
I appreciate you, my friend.
Cheers. Thanks for coming on. Until next time.
Yeah.
Bye everyone.